One car changed drag racing forever, but it looked so weird that nobody wanted to race against it. This is the story of Swamp Rat, the machine that Big Daddy built in his hospital bed. Keep watching to find out all about it. Don Big Daddy Garlits didn't earn his legendary status by playing it safe. He earned it by being the most dangerous man in drag racing. By 1970, he'd already broken multiple speed records, won countless races, and established himself as the king of the quarter mile. But success in drag racing comes with a price, and Garlits was about to pay it in the most spectacular way possible. The sport in 1970 was absolutely insane. We're talking about 1,500 horsepower nitromethane monsters that could hit 200 miles per hour in under 7 seconds, with drivers sitting directly behind engines that were essentially controlled explosions. The slingshot design put the massive supercharged engine up front, the driver in the middle, and hoped physics wouldn't turn lethal. Garlits had built over a dozen Swamp Rat dragsters by this point, each one faster and more violent than the last. He was the undisputed master of the front engine formula, but he was also living on borrowed time. Every run was a gamble with death, and the house always wins eventually. On March 8th, 1970, at the Lions drag strip in Long Beach, California, Garlits strapped into Swamp Rat 13 for what should have been just another routine run in the final round of Top Fuel eliminations. He'd made thousands of passes before, but this time, fate had other plans. The transmission exploded with the force of a bomb. The car literally broke in half, sending Garlits tumbling down the track in a mangled mess. But the real horror wasn't the destroyed dragster. It was what happened to the man inside. The explosion severed part of his right foot and nearly killed him on the spot. The brutal truth was that this wasn't a freak accident. The front engine design that dominated drag racing was fundamentally flawed, turning every driver into a human shield sitting behind a ticking time bomb. When those transmissions let go, and they did regularly, there was nowhere for the explosive energy to go except straight through your body. While lying in his hospital bed at Pacific Coast Hospital, watching Star Trek episodes with Tom McEwen and dealing with agonizing pain, Garlits did something that would change motorsport history forever. Instead of retiring or feeling sorry for himself, he started sketching the future of drag racing. The concept was radical. Put the engine behind the driver instead of in front. Move all the dangerous rotating components away from the cockpit. Create a machine that was both safer and faster than anything that had come before. Simple in theory, revolutionary in practice. Working with his trusted crew chiefs, TC Lemons and Connie Swingle, Garlits began building Swamp Rat 14 during the winter of 1970. The car had a 215-inch wheelbase with the engine positioned 20 inches behind the driver. They achieved an 82-18 static weight balance that Garlits believed would be perfect for traction and handling. But there was a problem that had killed every previous attempt of a rear-engine dragster. The cars were impossible to steer at speed. No matter how gently you steer, they would veer wildly from side to side. Finally, Swingle suggested changing the steering ratio from the normal 6-to-1 to a much slower 10-to-1, a simple change that solved everything. When Garlits debuted Swamp Rat 14 at Lions Drag Strip in early 1971, the reaction to the car was a mixture of fascination and ridicule. The dragster looked like nothing anyone had ever seen. The driver sat way up front, the engine was in the back, and the whole thing defied every conventional wisdom about dragster design. Hot Rod magazine called the disadvantages of the design obvious. Competitors refused to make qualifying runs alongside him, while track officials threatened to ban the car if it showed any handling problems. Lions manager CJ Hart, who had witnessed a terrifying rear-engine crash just over a year earlier, put Garlits on notice that one crossed barrier line would send him packing. The funny thing is, Garlits had actually brought 2 cars to California. Swamp Rat 14 was hanging in the trailer rafters, while Swamp Rat 15, a conventional front-engine backup, was clearly visible. When competitors saw the slingshot, they laughed, thinking Garlits had already given up on his crazy experiment. Then they saw the real car and had second thoughts. Garlits lost his first competitive outing with Swamp Rat 14, falling to Gary Cochran in the final round. But something magical happened during that race. The car ran straight and true, proving that rear-engine dragsters could actually work. The critics who had been laughing suddenly stopped laughing. 2 weeks later, at the 1971 NHRA Winter Nationals, Garlits arrived with a full body on the car and a score to settle. He qualified 9th in the 32 car field, which wasn't impressive on paper. But in eliminations, something beautiful happened. Garlits ran the low elapsed time in 3 of his 4 rounds, demolishing the competition with consistent 6.70 runs, while his opponents struggled to match his performance. The final was supposed to be anticlimactic. His opponent, Kenny Safford, couldn't make the call due to clutch problems. But Garlits wasn't done making statements. He launched into a tire-smoking 7.03 that sent a clear message to everyone watching: the revolution had begun. 5 weeks later, at Bakersfield's March Meet, drag racing's most prestigious event, Garlits did something that had never been done before. He won the legendary race for the 2nd time in his career, this time with a car that everyone said couldn't work. The victory was even more impressive because Garlits qualified poorly, starting 14th in the field. But in eliminations, he systematically destroyed the competition. He beat Gary Cochran in the first round with a 6.72. He improved to a 6.68 in round 2 and a 6.67 in the quarterfinals to edge Don Prudhomme, the California king who had dominated the sport for years. After a semifinal victory over Watu Simpson, Garlits squared off against Rick Ramsey in the final. Ramsey actually outran him with a 6.642, but Garlits got there first on a perfect hole shot and became the first driver to win the March Meet twice. More importantly, he proved that rear-engine dragsters weren't just viable, they were superior. By the end of 1971, the writing was on the wall. Garlits had won 2 major events with Swamp Rat 14, finished runner-up at several others, and completely revolutionized the sport's approach to safety and performance. But the old guard wasn't ready to give up without a fight. The 1971 season ended with a 5-3 advantage for front-engine cars, giving traditionalists hope that the slingshot era wasn't over. But 1972 told a different story. Only one front-engine car won an NHRA national event that year, and it was the last one ever. By 1973, rear-engine dragsters had completely taken over top fuel racing. The transformation wasn't just about safety. These new cars were actually faster. The weight distribution was better, the aerodynamics were cleaner, and drivers could focus on racing instead of surviving. Within 2 years, every competitive top fuel car followed Garlits' blueprint. Today, every single top fuel dragster, pro mod, and serious drag racing machine follows the rear-engine design that Garlits pioneered with Swamp Rat 14. The car that was ridiculed as weird and unworkable became the template for an entire sport. But the real legacy isn't just about performance. It's about lives saved. How many drivers escaped catastrophic failures because they were sitting in front of the engine instead of behind it? How many careers continued because Garlits proved that safety and speed could coexist? Swamp Rat 14 currently sits in the Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing in Ocala, Florida, where visitors can see the machine that changed everything. It doesn't look particularly impressive compared to modern dragsters, but that humble black car represents one of the most important innovations in motorsport history. So, the weirdest car ever built turned out to be the smartest car ever built. And the man they called crazy for building it, he turned out to be the only one who was thinking clearly. That's what separates legends from everyone else: the courage to be wrong in pursuit of being revolutionary. What other innovations in racing history do you think were as impactful as the rear-engine dragster? Let us know in the comments, and make sure to check out our other videos about the machines and minds that shaped drag racing history.